We'll probably be around for about an hour. Just starting up YouTube. Sweet. Okay, that should be YouTube live as well. I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes just to allow people to jump on, just in case they're a little late or whatever. Finishing off dinner or getting home from work. I've literally just walked in the door from work, so yeah, just give people a few more minutes, jump on board, and then we'll get cracking. And if you have just joined us, I'll just reiterate a couple of housekeeping things just for now. While I go through the presentation, it's just a lot easier if I could have everyone muted and videos off. Being broadcast live on YouTube as well, so in the interests of everyone's privacy, that's probably just the easiest for now. And as I go through the presentation, I'll just rattle through it, make notes, all that kind of good stuff. It's a completely free presentation. It's just a bit of information for you to try and get you taking a bit more creative control of your cameras. Covers off some of the basics of photography, some terminology, some best practice, all that kind of stuff. And it's, yeah, as I said, it's completely free. If you miss any of it, don't fret, don't worry. It will be available to watch back. It's always available to watch back, either on YouTube, or if you just message me directly or leave a comment or something, then I can send you a direct link, or I can send you a recording of it to your email, wherever you want. It's completely free, and it's to be shared around with anyone who wants it. Any questions or anything that you have at any point, make a note of them, because try to not have people jumping in and out of the presentation because of the live stream and all of that kind of stuff, as I said. But you're very welcome to ask questions at the end. There will be a time for Q&A, and you can utilize either the chat feature or the comments feature in Zoom or YouTube, or if you do want to jump on live at the end and ask your question over microphone or on video or whatever, you're very welcome to do that as well. Just bear in mind, it will make up part of the recording and or broadcast. So yeah, if you're not comfortable with that, absolutely fine. Just pop your question in the comments field and I'll answer them towards the end. Cool. Okay. So I'll just give people just 1 or 2 more minutes, and while I'm doing that, I'm just going to start sharing my screen, and that you should now be able to see my screen. If someone wouldn't mind, just in the chat feature of Zoom, just giving me a thumbs up emoji, or yes, or an okay, or we can hear you, or something like that, just to let me know that you can see my screen and you can hear me okay. That'd be good. Appreciate that. Perfect. Thank you, Faye. That's awesome. So that is the chat feature that I was talking about in Zoom. You can pop any questions in here and I'll answer them at the end. Or if you are on YouTube, you can pop them in the comments and I'll try and check them at the end as well. There is no waiting room or anything, so people should just be able to jump in as and when. So just before we jump into the actual presentation for this evening, just going to give you a couple of what's coming up things, just in case you've missed them and you're interested at all. So this is the Meetup Group. If you're on YouTube, we also run a Meetup group called Southwest Photography Group. And Meetup is a fantastic platform for socializing and running get-togethers of all kinds of nature. We're now at 555 members, which is fantastic. I think I've only had the group running for about a year, so to have 555 members is fantastic. Tonight we have the online introduction to photography. Sunday, January 30th, I have a full day workshop. Brunel's Bristol. This is taken in the best of Isambard Kingdom Brunel's iconic sites in Bristol. It's a full day's workshop. We go right the way through Bristol. I go up into Clifton. We finish in Clifton in a nice little either coffee bar or pub, whatever we fancy, and we'll go through the photos, we'll edit them and stuff as well. So it is a full day. That's pretty cool. There's only 3 spots left on this one, so if you're interested in that, have a look at it. I've got a challenge coming up on Monday the 31st. This is for anyone. It's completely free. It's very simple to enter. After tonight, you'll have a good idea about what Aperture is and how it can change your photos and how you can use it to creative effect. And this is a fantastic thing to get involved with. Just send your photos straight through to this Dropbox link, or you can email them to me. You'll have my email by the end of this evening, or you can pop them into, this meetup event if you want to do that. It's completely free, and it's just a bit of fun, and it just gives you something to work towards. You just take a photo utilizing either Aperture priority control or manually controlling your Aperture to give your photo a creative effect. And we would just go through them and critique them and have a look at them and see what people can come up with. It's pretty cool, pretty fun thing to do. In February, I'm running a photography course. So it's pretty much what we cover this evening, but in a lot more depth. So it's a 5-part course. And that'll be running, I think I'm doing that once a week. Is that how I've scheduled it? Yeah, every Tuesday. And it's pretty cool. We cover off a lot of information, and then at the end, you get you get a version of that recording. You also get an assignment to complete, a quick quiz to complete as well. And it just helps you, go over things that you might need to go over again that you haven't quite picked up on. The assignments give you something to work towards. I critique them for you. It's very personalized. I give you lots of feedback and encouragement and support along the way. So if you want to get involved with that, you can. You don't have to do the whole 5 parts. If you don't want to do every part of it, if you think you're not really interested in an overview of digital photography, you just want to do shutter speed, then you can just do shutter speed, absolutely fine. If you want to do the whole course, then you could do the whole course. You don't have to attend the presentations live, because anyone that does sign up for it does get a copy of the recording. So it doesn't matter if you can't make 7 o'clock on a Tuesday evening, you will get a recording of it, and you can send through your photos for marking and critiquing at any point through to my email address. Thursday, 3rd of February, we've got photo review. So any photos that you take, absolutely any at all, you send them through to me. I'm going to spend a bit of time 7 o'clock on Thursday, February the 3rd, going over them, critiquing them, giving you some feedback on them. That's live, it's free. That's a great thing to do as well. Feedback is a fantastic way to progress with photography. So that's enough of that. For now, I will pop back onto the website later on and show you a couple of other things that are going on. Let's just make sure that no one's got any issues before we kick off. Perfect. Yeah, you won't be able to see me because I'm sharing my screen. So you should be able to hear me okay. You won't be able to see me because I'm sharing my screen. So I will pop back onto camera at the end. Great. Okay, so let's kick this off. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me. It's fantastic to have so much interest in this little introduction to photography. Like I said, if you miss anything and you want a copy of it, just hit me up and I'll get you a copy of it after tonight's broadcast has been recorded. It's a complete overview of the foundations of photography. Make notes along the way. Don't worry if you miss something, you can always go back over it. And we're going to look at a number of different subject matters, cover off some terminology for you, so that by the end of this evening, you should have a pretty good idea of some of the terms that you might have heard sort of thrown around. You'll know what they mean and how you can utilize these particular things within your photography. So first thing I want to point out, or I want to make a point of, is this great quote. Don't know who said it, don't know when it was said, but it does get thrown around in photography quite a lot. And that is that great photos are made, not taken. And you might hear iterations of that. What that basically means is that the photos that you're really proud of and that you might frame and put on your wall are very rarely, although certainly are sometimes, just the products of chance. But normally, works of art, creative photographs are things that have taken a little bit more care and attention and a bit more time over. So if you can pick up some of these basic techniques, you're going to elevate your photography quite quickly and quite powerfully, and you'll be able to just come up with images that are much more creative and really represent and tell the story that you want to actually tell. Now, how do you do that? Well, there's a mixture of two main things, I believe, and that is your actual creative development and an understanding of the theory of photography. And two things go hand in hand. So how do you develop each of those things? Well, by studying theory and completing courses and assignments and things like that, reading up on photography. That doesn't have to be with me as a photography instructor, absolutely not. It could be with anyone, going onto YouTube, it can be going onto Instagram, watching people's stories, doing other online courses. There are hundreds, thousands of courses available online. Some are free, some are paid for. But by studying the theory, understanding terminology, studying your camera's controls, understanding the theory of photography, that's the first part. And then by actually taking photos, actually making art, actually going out and shooting, attempting assignments, submitting your work to people, whether that's me as an instructor, or whether it's the Meetup community in general, maybe the Facebook community. If you don't know about that, we'll speak about it a little bit later. Putting your images on Instagram, getting feedback from family, friends, peers, all that kind of good stuff. Sharing to galleries, various different social media, all that kind of stuff. Getting your art out there and getting feedback on it is the best thing you can do to progress your photography. You'll learn what people like, what they don't like, and you'll learn, more importantly, what you like and don't like. And that's the photo review that I do. That's a fantastic place to start.
Sorry, Graham. We don't see your screen. We just see a black screen.
Okay. Sorry about that. I wonder if that's a streaming issue. Thank you for jumping on and let me know. Let me just stop sharing and share screen. Cool. That should be better. Is that better?
Yep, that's good.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you for jumping on to let me know. Yeah, so actually get your photos out there, get some critique on them, get some feedback on them. That's the best way to progress. But you need to start somewhere, don't you? So that's what we're going to do this evening. This is me, just very, very quickly, just so you've got some idea about who's rabbiting away. My name is Graham. I've been a photographer for many, many years. I studied here in the UK. And then the photo in the top right-hand corner that you can see was me with my one-way ticket to Australia back in 2013. I went out there just on a whim, just kind of packed a bag and decided to go. And I gave myself 6 months. And it was 6 years later that I came home. I came home in December 2019, having traveled around Australia and 10 other countries, and got stuck, as a lot of people did, because of COVID, and kind of reevaluated everything and started this Meetup Group and moved into a different kind of way of working. So now I work primarily online. I work with people one-on-one, with coaching in a number of different aspects, mainly centered around photography. I became a dive instructor in Australia. I was already diving before I went out there, but became a dive instructor, started teaching people the wonders of scuba diving and underwater photography, which became a real passion of mine. Not such a big thing over here, but definitely in the world of travel. And now that things are opening up a little bit more, hopefully we can get back to that. But that's just a little bit about my story. You might be interested, you might not. I could talk about myself for ages, but that's not why we're here. So, overview of tonight's presentation. We're going to look at digital photography as a medium. We are going to look at shutter speed, what that is, how it affects our images, and how we can use it to create effect. We're going to look at aperture, what that is, and how we can utilize that. to take more creative control of our images. We'll look at the difference between auto and manual focus, and we'll cover off some basics of composition. So a lot of terms there that you may or may not have heard, but definitely some of the most important sort of places to start. Right, so digital photography. There's a myriad of digital cameras available on the market nowadays, and I think the starting place for digital photography is to understand the differences in cameras that are available. So that's what we're going to have a quick chat about first of all. So what you can see on your screen, or hopefully can see on your screen at the moment, is a typical compact camera, a point and shoot. They're very convenient. They're extremely small nowadays. They're very easy to transport. Generally speaking, they're quite cheap, but they don't give you much control. Yes, you might have ridiculous zoom capabilities. This one in particular can zoom 40 times optically, which is quite a lot, and there are cameras available which can do even more than that. But you don't tend to have much physical control over these cameras. They might have a couple of artistic filters that you can apply, maybe one or two shooting modes, but they're pretty much just a point and click. You point it at your subject, you hit the shutter button on the top, and it takes an image and it does it automatically for you. There's not much that you can really control. So you're leaving the image down to the camera, really. The next kind of step from that, generally speaking, are bridge cameras. Bridge cameras are a bit bigger. They have much more control. You can see this one in particular, the Sony Rx100, has got quite a few dials and buttons, and basically that signifies that you've got a bit more control over what you can do with the camera. They're a good camera system. They're excellent for video because, generally speaking, they are a fixed lens system. So you can't interchange the lenses on them. You can't take the lens off and replace it with another lens. Don't worry if you don't know why you would want to do that at this stage, something we can cover off later on. But the point is that because they are a fixed lens system, they're generally very good for video, because the zoom in and out when you're doing that, it tends to be quite quiet, very quiet. And so the video doesn't pick up on that. They're good for beginners. They're good for beginners that are interested in a mix of video and photography, but they don't give you as much control as a mirrorless camera system. So these tend to be very portable and lightweight. You can change the lenses. So you can take one lens off, put a different lens on, and the reason you would want to do that is because they do give you different shooting options and more sort of kind of creative control. So you might want to get very close to a subject that is far away. In that case, you would want something like a telephoto lens, or you might want to take a photo of an entire building and you're stood up close to it. Maybe you're in the doorway of a cathedral or something. You want to get the whole building in. You're going to need a very wide angle lens. Generally speaking, most lenses can't do both of those things. They can't be very wide angle as well as a long telephoto lens. So you would swap one lens for the other depending on what you were shooting. Yeah, as I said, excellent controls. I shoot on a mirrorless system. I'm an Olympus shooter. I shoot on Olympus cameras. They are compact. They are lightweight. So they're fantastic for the travel that I do. And yeah, I love the mirrorless system. I think it's getting better and better. You can add accessories and things onto them for different shooting scenarios that you might find yourself in or wanting to be part of. So I think they're great. And the workhorses of digital cameras are DSLRs, still very popular nowadays. They give you loads of control. You've got heaps of control over your shooting. You tend to end up with quite large file images, quite large final images, quite large file sizes. They generally nowadays they're good high quality cameras, but they can be expensive. You can get them cheap as well, but you'd be better off putting your money somewhere else in my book. But generally speaking, DSLRs, yeah, they tend to be a little bit more expensive, and they can be quite big and bulky and heavy, especially the upper level ones. And, kind of medium quality to higher quality. Once you get into metal bodies and that kind of stuff, they get quite heavy quite quickly, and they can be quite bulky, so they're not maybe the best for traveling around if that's what you wanted to do, or for a full day's shooting. If you're going out for a whole day and you're carrying your camera around all day, they can get quite heavy quite quickly and tire you out. And the last one that I love to mention, because I definitely think that they need their own place in the market nowadays, are smartphones. The camera systems on smartphones have improved incredibly quickly. And pretty much most of us have a decent camera in our pocket every day. We can do heaps of stuff on our phones, and taking great photos is definitely part of that. I have a number of one-to-one clients that shoot just on smartphones, and they're a fantastic system. You can add lenses on and all kinds of stuff down the track if you want to. Yeah, what I really like about smartphones is you can take the image, you can edit that image within an app or something on your phone if you want to do that, and you can share it straight away, either in a message or an email or to social media, all on the one device, all straight away. They've really come on. The quality of the final images has really come on in the last 10 years. So yeah, they're fantastic and they deserve their own mention. So if you don't have a camera and you're wondering what you should spend your money on, I would encourage you to consider, do you actually have a camera in your pocket every day? And is that an appealing way of shooting? Some people like to shoot with a physical, with a bigger camera with actual dials and things on them. But even if your smartphone, you've never looked at third-party apps for shooting with, even if you literally just have a camera app that takes an image, there are third-party apps that you can download that will give you much more control, as much control almost as a DSLR or mirrorless camera system. So yeah, don't be deterred. And like I said, I teach a number of people that shoot on smartphone. The important thing to note is that the principles of photography are the same across any of these camera systems. So you do need to know what shutter speed is. You do need to know what aperture is. You do need to know some composition rules and techniques in order to create some great images. Right. File types. These terms do get banded around quite a bit, and they can be a little bit kind of confusing. So I do just like to cover off a couple. TIFF and PNG I wouldn't worry about too much at this stage. Something that we go into a little bit more detail of later on. They're more kind of professional working file types. They're applicable for different scenarios, but the main ones that you will hear is JPEG and RAW. So JPEG is a very standard file type. Most images that smartphones take or that get shared around online tend to be JPEG files. They're a compressed file, so the file has actually been shrunk down by the camera or by the operating system, and what it's done is got rid of some of the information, whatever the information the camera feels it doesn't need in order to replicate the image. Has been lost, which is great for sharing and great for uploading to websites and things like that, because it makes it quite fast and easy to do so, but it's bad for editing. Now, it's important with digital photography to understand that if you really want to elevate your photography, if you really want to share the best images you possibly can, then you're probably going to need to do at least some basic editing at some point. You don't need to do it straight away. You don't need to do heaps of it. You don't need to spend lots of time in front of the computer or your device, but you're probably going to want to do a little bit of tweaking. And JPEGs are not great for that because they've lost some of the information. So let's say your image was a little bit too bright and you wanted to make it a little bit darker in post-process editing. You'd struggle to do that with the JPEG satisfactorily because it doesn't really have the information there to alter. Whereas a RAW file is, as it would suggest by its name, raw. It contains absolutely everything, all the information the camera could possibly save when you hit that shutter button is in that RAW file. So it's a much larger file size. It will take up more room on your smartphone or on your SD card or on your hard drive. But if you do need to make an edit, if you do need to change something or tweak something, then that information, generally speaking, will be there and available to you. So you haven't lost out on that image, because you can go back and tweak it and make it look how you want it to. So I would encourage you at this stage, you're here because you're wanting to become better photographers or elevate your photography or improve your photography. And I would say that at this stage, when you're out there shooting, taking images that you want to, that you are trying to tell a story with and you're going to share with people, I would encourage you to look at shooting in RAW. JPEGs are fine if you're just taking happy snaps or, just wanting to get the image, but spend a bit more time over your image, and that starts with shooting in RAW. Okay, cool. Let's move on to shutter speed. What is shutter speed? Well, shutter speed basically it is like a curtain in your camera. So we open the curtain for a determined amount of time, and it is time that we adjust when we're adjusting our shutter speed. So if you have a Canon camera, you will have a shutter speed priority mode, which is where you are only changing the shutter speed duration, and it will actually be indicated on your dial as TV, which stands for time value, which is a good thing to call it, because it is time that we are editing when we alter our shutter speed. So we can either leave the shutter open for a long period of time and let lots of light gather in the camera. We've allowed lots of time for the light to enter the camera, or we can use a fast shutter speed and cut that amount of time right down, so that the camera doesn't have as much time. It's not allowing as much light to gather into the camera. And there's a couple of reasons why we would want to edit our shutter speed. Here are two images, very, very similar images, okay? Very similar framing, shot at very similar times of the day. On the left, you can see that example uses a fast shutter speed. So the shutter is open and closed very quickly, and let a little bit of light in. And what's happened is it's frozen the motion of the water running over the rocks. It's frozen that, so it's captured it as it's rushing over. So you get this kind of ferocity to the water, and you can see the white and of the waves as it crashes over the rocks. Conversely, on the right hand side, you've got an image which has used a slow shutter speed. And what that has done is, because the shutters remained open as that water has come in over the rocks and then receded back out, it's blurred that water and blurred that motion. Okay, the rock has stayed still, the camera has stayed still, but what was moving in the scene, in this case the water, has been blurred out because a slow shutter speed has been used. Here's another example of some waterfalls in Cambodia. Water's washing over the rocks, and we get that nice mysterious feel to the image as we blur the water motion, because we've used a slow shutter speed. And we can do that to quite extreme levels. This image was taken in Australia of the night sky, and it was recorded over about half an hour. And in that time, the Earth has moved. We've rotated slightly, and so what we've been left with, as the camera has stayed still, the thing that appears to have moved in the sky are the stars. And so we get these trails from where the star was to where it was when we opened the shutter, and where it was when we closed the shutter, and it's recorded that whole movement. If we left that all night, we'd get the whole star trail, complete circle. So we can really use slow shutter speed to quite extreme levels. And here is a fast shutter speed, and it's again captured the velocity of the waves breaking onto the shoreline, So much so that we've actually got mist coming off of the back of the wave as well. So it's a very fast shutter speed that's been used. Cool. Okay, so let's move on to aperture. What's aperture? Well, aperture is like the pupil of your eye in the camera. Okay, so it's a hole in the camera that allows light in, and we can control the size of that hole, of that aperture. We can either make it very small, so allow you know, a tiny amount of light into the camera. So this would be the same as our pupil on a very bright day. So bright and sunny outside, your pupil is going to be very small because it doesn't need to allow lots of light in. It's very bright, so we just have a small pupil. Or if we're in, you know, if it's dark and there's not much ambient light available, our pupil would open up and allow lots of light in so that we can actually see properly. Exactly the same for aperture. So we can have a large open aperture and allow lots of light to gather into the camera, or we can have a very, very small aperture. Now, the numbering for apertures can confuse people, but basically you can see on the scale here that a very large open aperture would be f1.4. Okay, and a very, very small aperture would be f22. Now, the reason for that is because there's a caveat to allowing that light into the camera. Because the aperture is wide open at f1.4, the camera can only focus on a small part of our scene. So you can see that in the depth of field image at the bottom. So the number is small because of the distance that the camera can actually focus on, 1.4. On the other end of the scale, f22, the camera can get much more of the scene in focus, but it's going to not allow much light into the camera because the aperture is quite small. You can probably see now that there is an art to using shutter speed and aperture in combination with each other. Okay, so a slow shutter speed is going to allow the motion in our image to blur, and it's going to allow lots of light into the image. If we use a very wide open aperture and a very slow shutter speed, we're letting lots and lots of light gather into the camera. If we used a very, very small aperture and a fast shutter speed, we're allowing very little light into the camera. So on a bright, sunny day, you might find that you use quite small apertures and quite fast shutter speeds together. Excuse me. So this is the art form, is knowing how to use these things in combination. So here's a couple of examples of where aperture has been used to creative effect. Very popular kind of photography, portraiture. We're taking an image of a person. You can see the girl in the image there. The focus point has been set on her eyes. Because we've used a very wide open aperture, what's happened is any of the stuff around her in the background has been blurred out, and that gives a very pleasing effect to the image. We call that blur in the background bokeh, B-O-K-E-H, and there's a number of different ways pronouncing it, bokeh, bokeh, whatever you want to call it. I call it bokeh. And yeah, so wide open aperture has blurred out the background, focused on her face, and it gives a nice pleasing effect to the image. We can use that same principle in other shooting areas like plants, for example. So we focus on the petals of the plants, and then we can tell that there are leaves in the background, but they've been blurred out because our concentration wants to be placed on the petals. The same with the drink. Product photography, very often product photography will focus on the product and then blur things around it so that your attention is drawn to the subject matter. And we do that using a wide open aperture. Conversely, if we want to get more of the scene in focus, we find that there are more interesting elements surrounding our subject and we want people to look at that, then we can use a smaller aperture to allow more of the scene to be in focus. So the kookaburra on the fence, it could quite easily have been shot with a wide open aperture, but the green and the trees behind it complement it, complement the fence, and the blue in the sky complements it as well. So it's quite nice to have a little bit more detail in that particular image. Skylines, this view from the balcony in Hawaii of the sunset, you're going to want a lot of that stuff in sharp focus. You want the sunset, you want the detail in the buildings, all in sharp focus. So a small aperture has been used, and because I'm a long way away from things, I've had to use a small aperture so I can actually get that stuff in focus. So wide open aperture on the left-hand side will blur out things past our focus point and allow lots of light into the camera. Small aperture on the right-hand side will allow us to focus on more of the image and allow less light into the camera. Right, let's have a chat about focusing, auto and manual focus. Our cameras cannot focus on all of the areas of the scene, just like our eyes can't. So if you're watching this presentation at the moment on a computer screen, you're focusing on that computer screen, your peripheral vision is blurred out. The things around you, you can tell what's there, and you can kind of make them out, but at the moment, while you're looking at your computer screen or phone screen or whatever, your attention is there, and that's where your eyes are focusing. If you gaze to the left, your eyes will refocus on whatever is to the left of you or your screen, but your screen now will be blurred out. Our cameras work in the same way. We have to tell it where to focus. You can do this in a number of different ways. If you're using a camera with lenses that you can attach and detach, generally speaking, they'll have a focusing ring. So there'll be a ring that goes all the way around the end of the lens, and you can rotate that ring and it will bring things in and out of focus. And that would be manually adjusting your focus point. Okay. A lot of digital cameras nowadays, especially our smartphones, are touch screen. And we can actually choose a point on the screen we would like our camera to focus on, and we just tap on that area and the camera focuses on that point. This is a great way of shooting. I quite often use this on my Olympus camera. I'll touch on the area that I want to be in focus. But the camera is still kind of guessing at that point. If your scene is very busy, if you're taking an image of a plant, let's say, then you have to be quite accurate with that. So that would be auto focusing, because the camera is focusing for you, even though you're kind of telling it which kind of area you would like it to focus in. Manual focus is where you're actually rotating that lens focus ring. I think a good place for people to be at now, if you're sitting on a smartphone, utilize your touchscreen. It's pretty much the only way you're going to be able to focus. So tap on the area that you would like to focus. Now you can tap and hold on most smartphones, and it will focus on that area and lock that focus into place. Sometimes you can adjust that focus if you really need to, but if you're shooting on a smartphone, tap on the area that you would like the camera to focus on, and instead of just kind of holding it up and allowing the camera to guess what you would like it to focus on. If you're shooting on a camera system, you will have focus points, and you've probably seen these kind of things before. So what's happening here is the camera is, you're dictating to the camera how many focus points you want, whether you want loads and loads and loads in the top left hand image, or if you just want one, like in the bottom right hand image. Now, if you select the top left hand and you've got all these focus points, then the camera is going to try and focus on everything that hits, that is in those focus points. And it can become quite confusing and quite difficult for the camera to actually get all of that stuff in focus. And also, it might not actually be what you want the camera to focus on. So I think a good technique at this point is to utilize center focusing. So that's like the bottom right hand image, where you can see just the one red rectangle in the middle of the camera's screen. And what you do is you depress your shutter button halfway generally speaking, this is how it works. You depress your shutter button halfway and you get a ding little beep as the camera focuses on that point. All right, now it might be that that's set up exactly how you want, in which case you just continue to push your finger down and it will actually take the image. However, you might want to do something like the image on the left with the girl, which is where you want to place your subject off center slightly. And we're going to talk about composition in a minute. Now, if you want to do this, what you could do is you use your center focus point and you put that center focus point on her eye or in between her eyes, and you half press your shutter button and you get the ding as it focuses on that point. And then you just keep your finger halfway down, keep your finger where it is, don't lift it, keep it where it is, and just move your camera until you've got your subject framed as you would like. So you can see I've put the girl off slightly to the right hand side of the frame. So I've focused on that point, I've moved my camera a little bit, so I've got things set up how I want. Then I've pushed my finger down completely on the shutter button to actually take the image. This is a fantastic, if you're not doing this already, this will really start to elevate your photography. It's quite a dramatic thing that you can, quite a dramatic improvement that you can create using that technique. Okay, let's have a chat about some basic rules of composition. Now, composition rules is quite a harsh term, I think, but they're guidelines. They're guidelines. Now, it's important to know these so-called rules and to learn them and to utilize them and to put them into practice. But as you develop your creative eye, which, remember back to the beginning, is one of the most important parts of developing your photography, is developing your creative eye. As you develop that, you may well find that you don't particularly like these rules. It doesn't work for you. It's not how you want your images to be recorded, in which case you can break them. But to start off, you will never go wrong by putting these rules into place, let's say. So the main one that we're going to talk about this evening is the rule of thirds. Now, the rule of thirds gives easy balance, fantastic balance to a scene. Okay, and if you utilize it, you can't really go wrong with it. How does it work? Well, this is a grid that you can bring up on all of your cameras, whether it's a smartphone or mirrorless or DSLR or whatever you've got. You'll be able to bring up a grid like this, and this is the rule of thirds grid. And what happens is the frame is divided up into 9 sections. And we do that by placing 2 vertical and 2 horizontal lines. Okay, and it's created these thirds. Now, the red dots where the lines intersect are called power points. So if you put your subject on one of these power points, this is going to be an aesthetically pleasing effect. So it all comes down to how our brains work, how we process information, all that kind of stuff. But basically, if you put subject matter on one of these red spots, or on one of these lines, then it's going to create an aesthetically pleasing effect for your images. And you're not really going to go far wrong with it. So a couple of images that you've already seen this evening. And now, if we were to place that grid over the top, you'd see that that glass is on the right-hand third line. Okay, the bench top is on the bottom third line. Okay, so the scene has been divided up quite nicely. And it's quite a pleasing effect. A couple of images that you haven't seen already, but you've got palm tree on the left-hand side. It's on the third line. You've got the horizon line just above that third line. And the other thing that I want to say about horizontal lines is, with the rule of thirds grid, is it's fantastic for when you are taking images that have the horizon in them, because it helps you keep that horizon straight. And one of my pet peeves, and a very noticeable thing, is when people take images and their horizon is crooked, right? It's slanting off to the left or the right or whatever, and it's immediately noticeable and it's very distracting. So if you utilize the rule of thirds grid for nothing else, use it for your horizon lines or whatever line you've got that is prominent in your image. So you'll see the sunrise shot of the beach, of the waves crashing over the rocks, the horizon line is on that top third line, and it's keeping it nice and straight. And then there's balance through the image because the rocks are through the middle of the scene. And then we've got these waves, the water gathering in the bottom, which is all on the bottom third line. And then we've got a little bit of sand there. So it's a nice balanced image to utilize the rule of thirds perfectly for a landscape shot. And then we've got the manta rays feeding on the night dive in Hawaii. And the top right image, and you can see the manta ray doing its big backflip as it comes in to gather a mouthful of food. So on the right hand third line, the mouth of the manta ray below it is on the left hand third line. The center of the image essentially, but utilizing rule of thirds really nicely. Cool. Okay. So that's it for the kind of introduction, the intro to photography. That's it for the basics. I hope you've got something from it. You can utilize a few of those techniques. I'm going to jump to a Q&A in a second. So if anything is really confusing, feel free to ask and I'll try and help you out. You can always go back over this presentation later on as well. So don't worry if you haven't taken it all in. If you've only taken one thing away, whether, maybe it's, oh, I need to understand the theory of photography, that's fantastic. You've done your job for this evening. Just watch it as many times as you need to put these things into practice and then utilize the group to share your work afterwards as well. So my objectives as a photography coach are to establish an online education platform, which is what I'm doing, and through Meetup. I run photo shoots and workshops around the UK and abroad. You can see from tonight's images, I do travel a fair bit when we're able to, and workshops are UK, Europe, Hawaii, Australia, and I offer one-on-one coaching as well. So if you are not comfortable learning in a group environment, if you want a much more personalized approach, I think one-on-one coaching is fantastic. It's completely tailored to your needs. So we have an initial conversation completely free, find out where you're at, what you'd like to work on, and then put together a program completely designated for you. This is a fantastic way of working. That can be a mix of just Zoom, it can be in person, it can be a mix of Zoom and in person. Some of the areas of photography that you can get into, we've covered off digital photography, types of photography, shutter speed, aperture, basic composition. There's a lot more to composition. We can look at light in detail, black and white, travel, all kinds of things that are available. And the course that I've designed covers off each of these subject areas. If you have any questions at any point after this evening, or you want to reach out, or you want to get in touch, these are the places that you can go. So you can find me on Instagram at Graham C. Reynolds. There is a private Facebook group that I run, private because it just helps to kind of build a nicer, supportive community. It's a fantastic place to share your photos and get some feedback from like-minded people. That's Graham Reynolds Photography. And you can always reach out to me via email if you would like. And my direct email is grahamcreynolds@icloud.com. That's the best one to get me on, grahamcreynolds@icloud.com. Of course, I'm always available through messaging on YouTube and comments on YouTube and stuff, and in the Meetup group as well. And one of the things I do want to mention, I will pop this link in the Meetup, in the Zoom comments in a minute. But if you would like to privately discuss your photography in a bit more detail, you can book either a 15-minute meeting with me via Cogsworth, and I'll pop this link, as I said, in the comments in a second, or for the first 5 people that want to take advantage of it, I'll spend a full hour with you. Normally I charge 50 quid for an hour, but if you would like to spend a bit of time going over stuff in a bit more detail and maybe seeing if we can work together, or if you would like your work critiqued, if you've got lots of photos and you would like a bit of a review on them, a bit one-on-one time, then I'll spend an hour with you via Zoom. If you follow the link that I'm about to pop in there and pop the coupon code MEETUP in when you go through this process, to book a 1 hour consultation, then you'll get that consultation for 100% off. So it'll be completely free, but it's only 5 people that I can do that for. So I'll just grab this link. Jump into Zoom, and I'm going to answer questions and stuff in a minute. All right. So the first 5 people that go through that will be able to get a consultation for, as I said, for completely free, 100% off. So, right. Jump into YouTube. Right, I'm going to jump into Zoom, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And if anybody has any questions, then you can fire away. If not, then thank you very much for attending. I hope you've got something out of it. I hope you will attend or send photos through for the photo review, or for the Aperture. So each month I do a challenge. So this month is Aperture, but next month will be shutter speed, and it goes between Aperture, shutter speed, Aperture, shutter speed. So feel free to send your images through for that as well. Right, let's have a look.
I do.
Sorry, I have a.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, because I don't know how to raise the hand. Yeah, just wanted to ask you if, apart from photography courses, do you arrange also video making courses?
Video, no, I don't do much with video, to be honest. Okay. Yeah.
And these courses then are available all years long? I mean, I don't have to book it for a certain. Okay.
No. I mainly do one-on-one coaching nowadays.
Yeah.
But I do have a course, a 5-part course, which is this kind of stuff, but in a lot more detail and a lot more hands-on. So you are actually encouraged to take photos, send them through for review. There's theory quizzes that you do just to kind of, it's no pass or fail or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it just helps you know what areas you can still work on. And that's always available. And yeah, one-on-one is something that I just do all the time. So
yeah, okay, great.
Yeah, so I have this question. Do you happen to do like in-person shooting, like, you know, maybe on a nice day in London or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. I do a number of workshops throughout the year where people can book on, you know, in a group, if people want to do that, and that's just kind of according to when I schedule things around the world normally. And so I sell spots on that. Generally speaking, I keep that to 6 people, so that you know, there's plenty of time to go, you know, one-on-one with people through the day. However, having said that, I do actually offer private one-on-one shoots as well. So people don't want to be in a group with 5 other people, and they just want, you know, a tailored shoot to their, you know, particular interests, then that is something I do as well. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I just recently bought a Sony Rx100, one
Lovely.
of the compact cameras. So yeah. I was taking pictures with iPhone, and I thought, you know, spending on like a nice camera with all these manual features would be a nice one to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And understanding that and knowing what, you know, what to change in order to get the image that you want is kind of the next thing, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, is it group workshops or private stuff that you'd be interested in?
I don't mind either, but I think I'm also fine with having a group workshop.
Okay. Well, I generally speaking, most of the stuff I do, I put into Meetup. Very often, workshops are kind of full before I have a chance to put them on there. So but what I can do is I can grab your did you use an email when you signed up for Meetup?
Yes, so it's my, I can put it in my chat.
Okay, yeah, if you don't mind sharing it. And then I'll add you to a list, so when workshops are launched. And you're in London, did you say?
Yeah, I'm in London.
Yeah, I'm from London originally.
I am actually Australian, so I see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I saw some pictures there, so it was nice that you spent 1 hour. 1 month.
Reciprocal agreement, right? Where a lot of Aussies come here and a lot of Brits go there. So.
Exactly, yeah. Especially
I loved Australia. I miss it a lot. Where are you from in Australia?
I'm originally from India. Do you mind if I turn on my camera?
No, not at all. No. No, if you want to.
Yeah, no worries. Hi there. Hi, Graham.
Hello.
I was just having dinner while I was watching you.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Just finished. Yeah. So yeah, I'm originally from India, but we migrated to Australia. So I'm from Adelaide, in South
Adelaide.
Australia.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Great stuff. Does anybody else have any questions? Sorry, I cut you off, Andy.
Yeah, I've got one, Graham.
Hiya.
Brian is my name.
Brian, hi.
I've been messing around with a Canon 450D, a very old thing.
Yeah.
And I'm getting more interested in it now. So I'm thinking of buying a newer model. Yeah. But I see this mirrorless march coming on. Is there any point in carrying on buying an SLR, or should I go mirrorless?
You're not going to go wrong either way. I think it depends kind of what you want out of the camera. For me, because mirrorless systems are so good nowadays, there's no advantage in a DSLR, only disadvantages being the weight and the size, things like that. I can get exactly the same results and print sizes from my mirrorless camera setup, and a lot of professional photographers are going to mirrorless because of the practicalities of them, and DSLRs are just kind of seen as too much weight and too much kind of hassle. Having said that, if you can, it depends on your budget as well, because a good DSLR will probably come in at the same price as, for where you're at the moment, right? Will probably come in at the same price as like an upmarket compact camera, right? So, but it will be less than a mirrorless camera. So, for example, I've kind of badgered my way around that a little bit. For example, the Canon mirrorless system, right? Canon are quite new to the mirrorless game, generally speaking, right? Sony are one of the first ones to adopt it, Olympus too, but Canon are just starting to push like better mirrorless cameras. Their mirrorless cameras nowadays are thousands of pounds, because it's still a new technology for them. And they're only really doing really high level mirrorless cameras because they're only aiming them at like pros. So for me, either a Sony NEX6000 or A6000 or an Olympus EM10 are the best two cameras for improvers, students, beginners or improvers, or intermediate photographers.
For a mirrorless.
Yeah, for mirrorless.
I'm wondering, could it be? I mean, I like Canon. I've got used to it.
Yeah.
But is it? Do you think that all support and all new firmware, this all for SLR is just going to be phased out? And then after a while, I'll be stuck with a camera that's not being supported anymore. And
for your 450D.
No, the 450D that hasn't been supported for a long time. But if I buy, I was thinking about maybe a 6D or something.
Yeah.
To go up to a full frame. And now I'm wondering, I could buy that, but maybe in 2 years, there's nothing to support it. And are they trying to get it to go mirrorless?
I don't think it will be that quick, but but with any digital camera, there will come a point where the support is phased out. I don't think it will be that quick on something like the 6D. No. What you will find is that in maybe 4 or 5 years time, when I don't know how much more advanced they can get to where the technology is now, but technology is always moving on. What you will find is that your camera won't be able to do what the new cameras are able to do, but at that point, are you going to need it to? Like, what example can I give you? My new, I have 2 Olympus cameras. Right? This is my Olympus EM1, okay, and I have the EM3. Now this camera, this EM1, will take fantastic images, and what I can do, if I want to get everything in my image from front to back in sharp focus, I can implement a technique called focus stacking, right? Which is where I take an image, focusing on the front, the middle, the back, okay? And then I'll put those 3 images together on my computer to get one image which is sharp throughout. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So I can do that with this camera, can take 3 different images and stack them together. What my EM3 does is it does that in camera. So I select a mode, right? And I hit the shutter button and it takes 3 images and it moves the focus point for me. And then it puts those images together in camera so that when I move, my photos from my camera onto my computer, I've actually only got 1 final image. Whereas on my original, I would have had 3 images and I would have had to do the process myself. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm just thinking with an SLR, I can't do that.
No, you would be in the same boat as me originally. You would take 3, you would do the process yourself. What's important to you, right? Once you get to a point where that kind of thing becomes a consideration, you have a advanced grasp on photography, and you're basically considering, do I want to cut out the process, or do I enjoy the process of actually taking those images and putting them together myself and having that control over it? Right?
I must be honest, I hate reworking my images. I don't like spending hours. I'm not very good at it. I like to try and get it right first time out the camera. And I like generally just go places, walk around, and just see what takes my interest. So it can be absolutely anything. But manipulating, I get into such a state with that.
Yeah, I am exactly the same. The fun for me is actually in taking the images, right? Is actually in the process, being out with my camera, finding a subject and photographing it. That's the fun for me. I don't want to spend hours in front of my computer editing. It's the reason I only have an iPad Pro. So I'm talking to you on an iPad Pro. All of the editing I do on my images is on an iPad Pro. And it's because I don't want to get a laptop, because I'll just fall into this habit of doing more editing than shooting. For me, that isn't the fun, right?
No, it's not.
So I'm exactly the same as you. I have a better camera now than this original one for various different reasons. I've just given you an example of something that I probably implement into my workflow at some point. It was a nice thing to have, but it certainly wasn't the selling point for me. The other thing I want to say about camera systems is it depends how much gear you have for that camera system at the point of changing it. So I've shot on Olympus cameras for years. I have about half a dozen Olympus lenses, which are fantastic quality. They don't change, right? You spend money on a lens, you're going to be hard pushed to replace that lens in 10 years time. I know people that have got 30-year-old lenses, they still love them, right? But the thing is that lens will only work perfectly on the camera it's suited to, or a couple of the cameras that it's suited to, right? The mounting system, all right? This Olympus takes an Olympus mount. If I was to change from Olympus to Sony, all of a sudden I've got to either get an adapter, you know, to put on my camera to use my Olympus lenses. Well, that's never going to give me as good result as using native lenses, right? So I've either got to do that, or I've got to not only change my camera body, I've got to change all my lenses in my bag as well. Now I'm talking thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds and a pain in the neck.
That's what's been making me, I'm flirting with this 6D. I think, oh yeah, full frame. But all my lenses are EFS and they won't fit that. So I can get a 6D too for a very, very reasonable price. I mean, they're everywhere for nothing.
Yeah.
But the lens is just frightfully expensive. And the lens, I've got about 9 lenses for my 450, but they won't. Or will an EFS lens work on a full frame? No.
And that is that, but that is its own. That is its own issue. If you're going to go from a crop sensor to a full frame sensor, then you're probably most likely going to have to change your lens setup. But you are talking about a pretty big jump.
Yeah.
From shooting style. Are you ready to do that? And you can answer that question. Is it worth it? And once you've actually put everything into place, is it financially viable? I would talk to your local camera shop. Where are you?
Amsterdam.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right. Okay. I don't know many camera shops in Amsterdam. But I would talk to your local camera shop. Take your gear with you, and get them to look over it, and get them to give you some advice.
You give me an idea, because if I take 450 with all the lenses, that might get a second and a 6D with at least a starter f lens, something I don't know, 2405 or something, and start there. And then if it's, because what I really want is, my friends are telling me I make quite nice pictures, but the quality, you can see it's not top quality.
Yeah.
So that's why they've all said, get a full frame, you'll see the quality go right up.
Or lenses.
Yeah.
Now, there's probably true, because the 450 is quite an old system now. So there is probably, some truth in what they're saying. More, you should put more money into the glass than the body. But absolutely took the words right out of my mouth. Go to a camera shop with all of your gear and say, this is what I've got. I want to move on to a full frame. If you can, you can give me a lens system that will cover me from medium wide to medium telephoto, so maybe 2 lenses, maybe like a, I don't know, 12 to 24 and then a 24 to 105 or whatever. Then you probably won't get a straight swap, but you might get somewhere very close, and you're going to walk out with actually a much better, system. Do you need 9 lenses in the bag?
No,
probably not.
No.
I shot for years. I shot with a 12 to 40 and 40 to 150.
Okay.
For years. They were the only 2 lenses I had in my bag. In Australia, I got rid of all of my camera gear and I shot on smartphone for 18 months as a professional photographer, doing underwater photography as well.
Okay.
So gear's not everything, but if you are thinking about it, if you're making that move, I don't see the point in having both systems. Make the move, but try and make it as financially viable as you can, because it's a big one.
And I'll be pretty safe with things like firmware and support from Canon for at least 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. No problem. Does anybody else have any questions or comments or?
I have one last one, Graham, if that's
Sure.
okay.
Yeah.
So in the one of the images that you showed in terms of fast shutter speed and slow shutter speed, I was a bit confused because in the fast one, the picture quality was very good. Like it was very, very well focused, which is kind of counterintuitive because the shutter is going very fast. So you shouldn't be getting that much light in some sense, or?
So yeah, okay. So what happens is they're both handheld. Yeah. Right. So I didn't have my phone stable on a tripod or supported against anything. I was literally just holding it. I think it was my phone. Is it the two contrast, the two side by side, the one with the
the one with the ocean,
they're handheld. So what has happened is the fast one, the camera is able to capture that water movement, freeze it, and in the slow one it's blurring that, but because the shutter has stayed open, I've also moved a little bit. So I've like swayed, or my hand is shook a little bit or whatever. And because the shutter's open for a period of time, it's picked up on that movement as well.
I see.
So the whole image becomes a little bit kind of fuzzy, because of that movement. So the proper technique is have the phone as stable as possible, have the camera as stable as possible, put it in. If you're going to do long exposures, put your camera on a tripod, sturdy, steady, all right, and then you can just, whatever is still, and will remain tack sharp, but your motion will be nicely blurred. So yeah, it's not. I should probably change the images I put in the presentation to be like portfolio images, because they're basically images that I've gone snap, that would be good, that would be good, that would be good. Put them in a presentation.
Well, so I just
a whole portfolio of work, which are much better images.
This is a camera I bought recently. It's quite good, and like it's pretty fast shooting. So point and shoot. My cousin told me about it. Like he's from Australia as well. Right. He told me like this is a good one if you want to be a beginner, like learn the basics.
They're a great place to start. You've got the control that you need there for Aperture. You know, the main control that people should worry about when they're starting out is shutter speed and aperture. And it doesn't matter if you put, I should say in the presentation, on your cameras you'll have an A or AV,
which is the aperture priority,
is aperture priority, and you'll have an S or an SS, or if you're Canon you'll have TV.
I have S.
S, and that's shutter priority. So this is a fantastic place to start taking more control with your camera. Put your camera into aperture or shutter priority, and then when you actually move your dial, whatever dial it is, you'll be controlling the shutter speed, or you'll be controlling the aperture, and do that. Take images doing that. Put the I don't know. I don't want to say put the tap on and let it run, because that's not environmentally friendly. Fill a glass with water. Take and use your shutter speed to take images of that glass filling with water, and have stop the tap. Use a slow shutter speed, okay, and then use a fast shutter speed. And run the tap again and see the difference in the images.
I think I've seen a lot of people doing slow shutter speed for waterfalls, because you have this water or just water flowing in a river, for instance.
Perfect. If you've got a waterfall near you that you can get to it, put your camera on a tripod or on a railing or on a wall or something, and start mucking about with it. But don't worry about manual control. Don't worry about program control. Don't worry about white balance and ISO and all that stuff. Don't worry about it. It's not the thing to worry about. Start playing around with shutter speed and aperture, and you'll start to take more control of your photography.
It's all about experimenting, like absolutely practicing, and and even with iPhones you can actually do long exposure. So you take like a live photo, and then you can convert it into a sort of a long exposure.
Absolutely. And in fact, those images that you were talking about, that is exactly what I did. It's the one image I've taken on the left-hand side,
Yeah.
and I've just gone in and said, right, it was a live photo, change it to a long exposure.
Oh, nice.
It highlights the point perfectly, but it's and like you probably heard me say to Brian, I spent 18 months shooting on just an iPhone as an experiment. And that's why I'm a big advocate for smartphones, because I know they work and I know they're convenient, and it's more important for people to be into photography and shooting and taking images than it is to worry about loads of gear. So
yeah, I'm following you on Instagram now, so maybe
cool.
when you get a chance to have a look. I've taken like a lot of pictures in London, so all taken on iPhone.
Brilliant.
But from now on, it'll be on this. So let's see.
Very close to my heart, London. So.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks,
okay.
man. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I'm just going to check one more time. I can see there's a notification there, but just going to make sure I haven't missed anyone's question. Thank you, Graham. I think I need to email you as I'm not sure how the meetup thing works. I'd already seen tonight's talk in a recording. What about payment? Completely free. Completely free. There's no charge for this evening. Absolutely fine. There is a voluntary contribution for Meetup if you want to send money through Meetup. Costs me a bit of money to run each month and stuff, but it's not, most of the stuff I do on there is free. Thank you, Graham. I have dinner now. It's nearly 10 o'clock here and I lost track of time. Thanks again. And successful with that's very kind of Brian. Excellent. All right, everyone. Thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of the evening. If you do have questions, if you wake up tomorrow and realize that you wish you'd asked a question, you can always email me. So
thanks, Graham. Thanks for that.
Thank you very much. Bye. Good night.